Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. It's a great pleasure to be here, and it's a pleasure to be introduced by Johannes, who we were together in Abu Dhabi only a week ago. We seem to be following each other. You know, Johannes, we cannot keep on meeting like this. My subject today is gas demand, the overlooked factor. The previous speaker, Mr. Al-Riyami, gave you an expose of the gas industry in general. I would like to introduce a different note to concentrate on gas demand and how reactive it is to price, using the United States as a focal point. But before I do so, I would like to give you a quote. It's from Richard Feynman, the famous physicist. He said, "Our imagination is stretched to the utmost, not as in fiction to imagine things which are not really there, but just to comprehend those things which are there. It is our task to comprehend fully what we see in front of us. And in this instance, I think we have neglected one of these considerations in terms of the gas market, the role of demand, the responsiveness of demand to the price of gas. As you know, fracking is the theme of the day in gas. Much has been written about the gas revolution and how it is changing the energy world, but so far the main change has occurred in the United States, as you know, and it has led to this surge in production has led to very low prices in comparison to what they were before. With no LNG exports to date, there is only one project that is likely to come to fruition, and that is next year, Chenier's Sabine Pass plant. The United States, the excess of gas has been contained domestically, and it has led to this very low price. Gas, of course, is the fuel of choice globally, and the gas demand has been rising at 2.6% since 2005, far beating oil in that respect. But it is expensive in LNG form, and the pipeline side, transporting gas by pipeline, is subject to political pressures. As you know, the Ukraine now is in the middle of a crisis, and that involves Russian gas, which is transported both to the Ukraine and via the Ukraine to the west, to Western Europe, and it has created huge pressures. So only in the United States has gas been a success so far. Now, gas's versatility and its clean burning characteristics and its relatively low CO2 emissions has made it the best all-round fuel for use in power generation. This is, of course, is most clearly seen in the United States due to the fracking revolution and the low gas prices, where gas use in power generation has taken off. And as you will see later when I will present some slides, it has affected the gas market mainly in the US, but it has had an impact on the coal market, and in this country here, it has had quite a big impact on the UK's power generation. It's an important consideration. Europe itself, as I will say in my concluding remarks, has the possibility to engage in its own fracking revolution. There are ample shale resources in the United Kingdom itself, of course, as you probably know, those people who live here, but also in France, in Germany, in Poland, and in the Ukraine itself. So there are abundant resources, but what we need is the will to use them, to exploit them. The EU itself is wedded to a costly renewables program, which has made electricity expensive in Europe, and it has harmed Europe's international competitiveness. So this is the big picture for gas, and I shall elaborate on some of these points. I won't show all the slides, but you can see them at your leisure, but I will highlight certain points I want to make. If I may have the next one. So just to recap on what has happened in the United States, these slides show the picture going back to the 1980s, and you can see how the production of gas took off in round about 2000 and around the early 2000s, and U.S. natural gas net imports started declining as demand for gas was slow in adapting, in changing. But as you can see, the demand for gas in the United States, and this is the point I'm trying to make today, is the demand for gas, with a delay, started rising as well. So imports, net imports, although they fell, they started, the decrease, the decline in net imports started to slow up. And in 2013, there was actually a slight increase in the US's net imports. Of course, the big force driving this was the big fall in the price of gas in the United States. These are Citygate gas prices in dollars per million BTU, and they came down from around $9 per million BTU at the peak. This is in nominal terms. They almost halved down to just under $5. In real terms, they certainly halved, more than halved, as you can see from the light blue line. These are Citygate prices. We all know about the Henry Hub prices, but what matters more is these are wholesale prices at the Citygate, and if you look at the retail prices, the changes aren't as great as these. But nevertheless, the story is very clear that the heavy fall in prices has caused a demand surge, and of course it has had an impact on production of gas as well, which is slowing up because a lot of the rigs that were employed in gas exploration and development were shifted into oil as the gas price started falling heavily. Now, these two graphs form really the essence of what I'm trying to say today. I have tried to decompose the demand for gas in the United States into two components: the effect of activity, real income, real GDP, if you like, which is one of the main driving forces, and the effect of changes in the real price of gas, which is the other major factor. What I did was to, of course, try to explain variations in gas demand, first of all, and then, having done this econometric work, I have tried to decompose, break it up into the two components I mentioned, the main drivers, and by keeping in one experiment real income constant, in the other real prices constant. So if we look at the green line, you can see that's the line that results from keeping the real price of gas constant. That is taking out the price effect. As you can see, it keeps on rising. There are moments when it flattens, the rate of increase declines, but overall you expect this kind of performance. The more interesting one is when you keep real income activity constant and you allow just the real price of gas to vary. And you can see here that the real gas prices were falling in this period from the 80s all the way up to the 90s. And then the real gas prices started rising. This is before the shale gas revolution. And there you can see the effect on the demand for gas is obviously negative. And here the last point is the current period we're in, since 2005 roughly, when the heavy fall in the real price of gas resulted in a big boost to gas demand. And this is the kind of boost you get from real prices once you hold the activity variable constant, as I said earlier. Here, this is another way of showing this effect. The blue columns represent the effect of real income or activity on gas demand, and the red columns reflect the effect of real prices. Here is the shale gas revolution here. You can see that the biggest effect in the last 4 or 5 years on US gas demand has been the fall, the heavy fall in the real price of gas, which is, we economists expect this to happen. It's just, as I said in my quotation from Richard Feynman, the problem is to try to find it, to try to seek out this effect. We know it's there in theory, but the problem is how to find it in practice. But the evidence is there for you to digest. It is clear that demand does respond to price in the gas industry in the United States, and there has been a surge in gas demand as a result. So we can translate this into, can have a look into the rest of the world, and in this case I've really concentrated more on the United Kingdom because it presents some clear issues that would be, I think, of interest to you. Mainly, that diagram on the left you've seen before. It's the United States and the effect of the shale gas revolution on the United States and its net imports. This one here shows the relative price of US gas in relation to, for example, the red line is the Henry Hub gas price. The blue line is the price of oil. The black line is the price of coal. And the dotted line is the price of electricity in the United Kingdom. So you can see that certainly gas price, this is the national balancing point gas price in the United Kingdom, the green line. You can see that that's quite highly correlated with the price of oil. And the price of electricity is also highly correlated both with the price of oil and gas. In the United Kingdom's case, the correlation is very high, as I will show you in a slide later on, between the price of electricity and natural gas, because 40% of power generating capacity in the United Kingdom is gas driven. But of course it's, and the gas price itself is related to oil via these long-term contracts. Not all of it, but quite a bit of it. So that correlation you would expect between those three. The United States, by contrast, you can see the red line, the Henry Hub price, breaking away from this, whereas before this period, before the 2005, they were all moving in concert together. They were correlated, if you like, internationally. So there has been a break in the two markets across the Atlantic basin. The United States being isolated with its cheap gas, and Europe forming a different case. One important consequence of, as I said earlier in my introduction, of this US shale gas revolution, there are a lot of numbers here, but the point I'm making with this graph is that electricity prices faced by industrial consumers in Europe are a lot higher than they are in the United States. There are a whole list of European countries here. The price in euros per kilowatt hour varies from a very low 7 euro cents per kilowatt hour in France, 7.7 cents, and Finland, in France in particular, because it uses, as you know, a lot of nuclear power, and that's very cheap in comparison with the fossil fuel generated power, all the way up to Cyprus at 20 euro cents per kilowatt hour, because Cyprus uses exclusively diesel to power its electricity generation. So there's a big range there. But what's really important is that if you look right at the bottom, I don't know if you can see the detail here, but in the United States, the electricity prices faced by industry is in equivalent terms, in pence, euro cents per kilowatt hour, is 5. The European average up here is 9.4 euro cents per kilowatt hour, so you can see that it's almost half the cost. So this has real repercussions And this has helped the United States in what has been termed reshoring, that is bringing back to the United States industries that had been lost to the US over the last 20 years or so, and now they're enjoying a renaissance. Industries like petrochemicals, chemicals, fertilizers, glass, steel, and high-tech alloys. These are really booming, and the only reason for that is this cheap gas and cheap energy coming through via electricity as well, those industries that use a lot of electricity. The country in which we operate here, I thought this might interest you. This is to show you the correlation, the connection between the price of electricity and gas. The blue line here is the daily price, actually it's the day-ahead price of electricity, the spot price if you like, on a daily basis from January 2010 to March this year, 14. You can see there are 3 spikes, and the price below, the red line, is the national balancing point price of gas, the spot price of gas, if you like, the day-ahead national balancing point natural gas price in the United Kingdom, also daily, as you can see, over the same period. And the spikes, this one is not quite, is missing, this spike here, but the other 2 spikes are very clear. They occur exactly at the same time, and this is clear proof that the general trend is obvious to you, but there's also clear proof that when gas prices spike, so do electricity prices. The correlation over this period between the price of electricity in the UK and the spot price of gas is 82% over this period. The day-ahead electricity price and the spot price of oil's correlation is 48%, and the day-ahead gas price and the spot price of oil is 68%. So here we have a clear message. Obviously, because of the contracting, the contracts relating gas prices to oil, you get this 68% correlation between the two through these contracts, but not all of them, of course, because there's spot gas use as well, which is not related to oil. And you can see, obviously, there is some correlation between electricity and the price of oil, 48%, but that comes, as I said, through the gas price. I showed you the responsiveness in the United States to the price of gas. Here I'm showing you the electricity side, UK industry's demand for electricity, and how it's affected by changes in the price of electricity itself. You can see here this big surge in the price of electricity, which has come for various reasons, mainly from the gas side, because of the surge in the price of gas, but also because of the United Kingdom government's espousing the cause of renewables. A lot of wind power there has been investment in wind power, and through the feed-in tariffs, that has been also adding to the increase in the price of electricity. And this, of course, you can see here, the flattening of electricity demand in the United Kingdom, and then the fall. So we're in a period where high electricity prices are constraining the growth in electricity demand. In fact, it's pushed it negative. Of course, we've had the big recession to explain a lot of this dip. But the point I'm making is, I hope, clear. If I may go to the next one instead of this, to show you the load factor in the United Kingdom, the load factors which are here of the different fuels. There was a time back in the 80s when the gas and nuclear load factors were similar and very high, around 80%, because there was a big dash for gas in this country with cheap North Sea gas, and power generation shifted from coal heavily into gas. The nuclear stations were at full power, and of course, as you know, nuclear power is baseload electricity, which has it's very cheap, has very cheap, low operating costs. They're very expensive to build, but once they're built, they have very low generating costs. So you'd expect that kind of story from nuclear. And gas, of course, gas was very cheap. It was cheap to build these stations, and the UK went into gas production, electricity generation from gas. I just wanted to point out how this story has changed a little bit in the last few years. The previous speaker alluded to it. What has happened in the United States with the fracking revolution, cheap gas, has backed out coal in the US from power generation. That coal has found a home in Western Europe. If we're talking about the UK in this case, cheap coal prices have, if you like, have encouraged a rejuvenation of coal burning, aided and abetted, may I say, quite importantly, by the EU itself. The EU has, through the Large Combustion Directive in 2001, has told the power generators who use coal that you must either use scrubbers to reduce the sulfur dioxide emissions from coal, or you must shut these stations. And you have a window of opportunity to do so. You can declare, we will carry on with these, we will invest in scrubbers and carry on producing electricity via coal, or you have a window of, I don't know, 70,000 hours or whatever it is, to produce as much as you can and then close the stations completely. So that is what is behind the low coal price coming from the United States via fracking, and the Large Combustion Directive has pushed the UK power producers to run flat out some of their stations and then finally shut them, which of course is fine for the moment, but in a few years' time when these stations, and many of them have decided to not to put in scrubbers, not to invest anymore, but to run them hard and then stop. Now that in a few years' time, 3 or 4, will create a capacity problem, and that's the issue we are facing here. So that explains this kind of switch. The load factor for gas has gone right down to 30%, and coal's load factor has shot up. Here you have the prices behind this. You see coal prices falling, and that lies behind this as well, combined with the Large Combustion Plant Directive. So I'm coming to the end, I think, Johannes. I have a few more minutes. Here I've separated the bullish and bearish factors for European gas and electricity prices. It's a complex story. What I have done here is that the bullish factors for the price are in red, the bearish factors in blue. One of the key ones today is that the EU remains dependent on Russian gas, of course, and if this remains or is intensified, then it's a bullish factor for gas prices in Europe. Otherwise not so. In the United States, where I started this story, the strong US gas demand growth will keep US gas exports lower than otherwise would have been the case, given the shale gas revolution. Weak US gas demand, on the other hand, will keep prices higher, will keep exports higher or prices lower than otherwise would have been the case. So these are obvious kind of connections, if you like. One of the key ones here is for the medium to longer term is if Europe is slow to embrace fracking, you must expect prices to be higher than they otherwise would have been. Of course, Saudi Arabia and the oil price, because of the contract situation, has a lot to do with this story. Carbon floor prices, rising or falling, would keep the price of electricity rising or static, and so on and so forth. So you have quite a few factors there to consider. That's what makes our business very interesting, but also very complex. I'd like to go to my concluding remarks. Just to recap some of them, cheap US gas has revitalized US industry via cheap electricity because of fracking. The slow US regulatory approval of LNG plants has kept indigenous gas prices in the United States low. These low prices have stimulated consumption and slowed the growth in gas supply is an important consideration. Europe could itself follow the lead of the US and enjoy much cheaper electricity, but it has chosen instead to trod the path, as I say here, of renewables at great cost to the European energy consumers. The Ukrainian crisis that we're still in has brought the security of supply issues in Europe to the fore, right up the agenda to the top, and has heightened the need to diversify Europe's gas supplies. The US could help in this regard, as I say up there, but it'll take quite a number of years for these LNG exports to make a difference. As I said earlier, there's only one LNG plant that is going to be operational next year. There are 4 others in the pipeline, so to speak, but they haven't received FERC, as they call it, the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission approval yet, and there are another 19 also in the pipeline. So the potential is there for very large US LNG exports, but I think it'll take a lot longer than many commentators suggest. So Europe is left with 3 choices: either to intensify its drive for renewables, or to revive nuclear power, or to buy into the fracking revolution. Europe seems to have chosen, driven by the European Union, to have gone for the intensification of its renewables drive, and of course Germany itself has given up on nuclear power, and the power stations will be closed eventually, and many other countries are following suit. My own choice, I know, is very clear. You would know it by now. So this is the story. Thank you very much for your attention, and it was very kind of you to invite me here. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Leo. That was a great speech. Would you like to ask a question? I'm sure there will come more questions. We will now all have an opportunity in a panel. So if you please take a seat, and if I may ask Mohamed to join us on the podium. And so we will have